Hi, I'm doing the review for Tuesdays with Morrie. This is my personal podcast. I was halfway through filming the other one, and my phone decided not to record anymore, so I get to restart it. So, my initial thoughts of the book. I thought it was a great read. I really enjoyed it. Compared to Sway, I thought this was a lot better because has more of a moral, has more of like a goodness behind it, as opposed to Sway, where it was kind of just fact based. This really gives a good story of a man's how one man's suffering could help so many people. I just thought it was a great read. To start off, who do you think the question reads, who do you think got more out of the meeting, Mitch or Morrie? I'd like to believe that they both got a mutual benefit from these meetings. They both got to share stories. They both got to talk. They both got to listen. I would like to believe that it was mutual, but in my opinion, I think Mitch got more out of this because Morrie already knew that he was dying. He knew everything about his life. He was using this as a last experiment. So for Mitch, it was kind of him coming in and observing and listening. So for Mitch, he learned a lot. So I definitely think he took more. I think from the whole experience, from him listening to somebody who's suffering with ALS, who's using their own death as an experiment on how to cope with death, I think he really benefited more. I'd like to believe in real life, when they would actually meet, they both got a mutual benefits, but I think it was Mitch. Alright, on to the next question. The first part is, do you think Mitch would have listened if Morrie hadn't been dying? And the second follow-up part to that question is, does impending death automatically make one's voice able to penetrate where it couldn't before? To answer the first part, I don't think Mitch would have listened to Morrie if he hadn't been dying, because it's just same with everything in our lives. Once you leave, yes, they knew each other before then, but Mitch wasn't going out of his way to find him anyway. So excuse me. Mitch wasn't going out of his way to find him. They just he saw the story and just thought, oh, well, I should get back in touch, or I see what's going on here. So I think he wouldn't even have found him. He would have just continued to live his life of success. And then, to answer the second part of the question, absolutely. It just goes without saying. I think that if any of us were faced with a situation where somebody we used to know or somebody we do know is facing impending death, we would listen to them. I don't think out of seeking the knowledge that they have, but I think it would just be more out of sympathy, more giving them somebody to listen to. So absolutely, impending death makes someone's voice able to penetrate where it couldn't before. That just, in my opinion, that goes without saying, but that's just my opinion. Next point to bring up is, does this book make Morrie's death a public event? There's a follow-up that says, if so, how is it similar to other public deaths we've experienced in society? How is it different? I think it did make his death a public event because he was putting himself out there as a quote-unquote experiment to see him coping with death. He knew he was dying. He knew there was no hope. So he was using this as an experiment, and more people saw this. That's how Mitch saw it. So I think that it was, wasn't so much a public event, but a lot of people knew about it in public, and you can't really kind of compare it to public deaths that we've witnessed in recent, more recent history of more famous people. I think it's just the fame level, like how famous you are, really coincides with how public your death is. And to answer the second, it's similar to, not in any recent times, but with Jesus in the Bible, how he knew he was going to die, and he was helping all these people. So, and eventually they knew Jesus was going to die, and everybody knew Morrie was going to die. I'm not saying Morrie is Jesus. I'm just using this as a comparison, one that I think applies to the situation. But they're both quote-unquote public deaths that could apply to the same situation, and a different public death would be the death of JFK. It was sudden, unforeseen. It just happened out of no boom like that. So I think with Morrie was prolonged. He knew it was going to happen. Everybody around him knew it was going to happen. With JFK, it was just a shot, and then it was done. So I think there's the differences. So a comparison, so a similarity of his public death is between himself and Jesus Christ, and then just that difference of how sporadic it was, how spontaneous the death was. Morrie knew he was dying. JFK did not know he was going to die. So that is just that's the difference between those two. Alright, on to the next point. Morrie referred to himself as a bridge, a person who is in between life and death, which makes him useful to others, and is a